Nearly a month had passed since Linley had reached the second tier of magical mastery. In the first-year course of the Wind Elemental Magic, he attended every class diligently. He only occasionally attended Earth Element classes once a month. That day he took his regular seat as usual. "Linley, you're here," said a cute girl as she sat down beside him. Glancing at her, Linley said with a smile, "Gwyneth, you're quite early. There's still some time before class starts." Sitting next to a cute girl was indeed an enjoyable experience that most boys wouldn't refuse. And Gwyneth Hardy was no ordinary person. Her brother Dexter was the leading prodigy at the Institute and was considered a rare magical genius. He was a dual-element mage with outstanding elemental affinity, and his will force far exceeded his peers, marking him as an exceptional talent. Gwyneth was nearly as talented as her brother. "I know you always come early. I've noticed you," Gwyneth said, smiling so broadly that her eyes crinkled. As they chatted, time seemed to fly by. Before they realized it, class had begun. Magister Brandon lectured passionately at the front, while Linley listened attentively. Meanwhile, Gwyneth continued to take her notes and occasionally sneak glances at Linley. "All right, that concludes today's lesson. However, before class ends, I have something important to share with you all," Brandon said with a smile. The students in the classroom immediately began discussing in hushed tones. Senior students should already know, but Oakfield Institute has a tradition. In the last month or two of each year, we host the grade tournament, which is the most exciting time for our entire student body. Moreover, those who excel in the grade tournament are more likely to be recognized as top students upon graduation. By then, the Tetrad Dominions will likely extend invitations to all of you, he said with a laugh. The students became excited. Oakfield Institute was full of talented students. These students shared a common trait. They were often competitive and independent. As a result, the annual grade tournament became an opportunity for them to make a name for themselves. Most students were interested in this tournament, and those with some ability would participate. Of course, we need to send in students from our course to take part too, and I know many of you will. If you're interested in signing up, come let me know. "Sir, I'd like to participate," several students eagerly announced as they signed up. "Great." Brandon took out a paper and pen to record the names, but after noting down more than a dozen students, he noticed Linley and Gwyneth chatting without any intention of signing up. Brandon got up and stepped towards Linley. Linley looked up and immediately greeted Mr. Foster. Gwyneth, who was next to him, also nodded respectfully. "Linley, this school tournament is a great opportunity for training. I believe almost all the elite students in the entire first grade will participate. Why aren't you signing up?" "Such opportunities are rare." "I'm not interested," Linley said directly. Brandon was taken aback. "Linley, you may not know, but there are some rewards for winning this school tournament," Heir said enticingly. "Rewards?" Linley knew that he really needed the money. His family's financial situation was not very stable. If he could earn some money on his own, joining the school tournament would be worth it. Yes, you should know that most students live in regular dormitories, which have single rooms with private yards like ours. However, winning a spot in the top 3 of each school tournament allows you to live in the 2-story dormitories for a year, a status symbol, and these apartments are much more comfortable. And, besides that, you might even get some gold bucks if people are really impressed, Brandon continued. Linley understood. Across the entire campus, 2-story dormitories were rare and mainly housed the most powerful 7th and 8th tier mages. Now it seemed that the top 3 students from each of the 6 tiers had the privilege to reside there for a year. Are the living conditions really that important, and the monetary reward was not guaranteed? "I won't participate," Linley reiterated. Brandon was a bit anxious. As a teacher, he knew that if his students placed in the top 3, he would not only receive rewards, but also gain significant prestige. Young people were always concerned about their reputation. He approached Linley and said in a low voice, "Linley, are you worried about revealing your strength? I know you have already reached the level of a Tier 2 mage." Hearing this, Linley was surprised and looked at Brandon blankly. How did Mr. Foster know about his abilities? After all, it was very difficult to assess someone's abilities just by looking at them. Seeing Linley's expression, Brandon thought he had hit the mark. With a smile, he continued, Linley, don't hide your strength. Even if you choose not to participate to keep your abilities under wraps, be careful, or I might reveal your secret. My power level being revealed is the least of my concerns, sir. I'm not participating anyway. I'm not ready, Linley said nonchalantly as he stood up, then nodded respectfully. Goodbye, and thank you for considering me capable, sir. Then, ignoring Brandon's surprised look, he left immediately. I swear I thought I had him figured out. Brandon chuckled, unable to contain his amusement, while Gwyneth covered her mouth, giggling beside him. The wind elemental class didn't end until after 6 p.m., and the sky was already darkening. Linley headed back to his dorm, where he and his 3 close friends shared a strong bond, often gathering for dinner together. Linley, you're back. A curly-haired boy from the neighboring dorm greeted him enthusiastically. Harry, have you had dinner yet? Linley responded with a smile. Linley got along quite well with the students in the surrounding dormitories. Harry nodded with a smile. Of course I have. Your 3 friends are all waiting for you. Linley's back. Let's go, everyone. Let's eat. Grant's voice rang out. Grant had obviously heard Linley's voice in the courtyard, prompting him, Nathan, and Peter to get up. Together, the 4 friends made their way to the cafeteria, leaving behind the luxurious eateries nearby the Institute, which Grant, now persuaded by Linley, Peter, and the others, visited less frequently. In the small cafeteria, the dishes were very reasonably priced and tasty. After ordering some food, the 4 friends started talking again. Linley relied on his 3 brothers to keep him informed about Institute activities, as his intense practice sessions in the mountains often left him unaware of updates about ongoing events. The first year will wrap up in just over a month, Grant noted. In the last month or 2 of each year, the entire Institute hosts an annual grade tournament. The top 3 in each grade earn the privilege to live in those 2-story dormitories for a year. Annual grade tournament? Linley laughed. He had just heard the news in the classroom. I'm definitely going to participate, Nathan said confidently. Grant pouted. You know, you reached the Tier 1 power level. By now you're probably close to becoming a Tier 2 mage, right? This is so unfair, Nathan grumbled. It had taken him a whole year to travel from his home to the Institute. During the long carriage ride, he studied magic under his grandfather's guidance and had already become a Tier 1 mage by the time they arrived. Peter grinned at Linley. Hey, let's not forget about Linley here. He was already a Tier 1 mage when he enrolled, and with how crazily he's been training, plus being a dual-element mage, I bet he's the strongest in our dorm. Linley grinned. Come on, Peter. No need to flatter me. Linley, be honest. Do you think you've improved your skills by now? Peter stared intently at him. Nathan wrinkled his nose. No way. That's too fast. With our skills, going from a beginner to Tier 1 might only take a year, but from Tier 1 to 2, at least 2 years, at the very least. I don't know. Linley's been quite secretive. Grant chimed in, also eyeing Linley. So, have you made it to Tier 2, or what? Linley nodded casually. Reaching Tier 2 wasn't unusual. He had already been on the first tier before the magic aptitude test a year ago. With all his intense training since then, it would have been disappointing if he hadn't ascended by now. Did you really do it? Grant, Nathan, and Peter all gaped in disbelief. They hadn't expected it to actually be true. Linley, you've got to join the tournament then. Grant urged, go in there and show them what you've got. Earn some glory for Eagle Hall. Just then, the server arrived with their food. All right, let's eat. I'm not really interested in the tournament, Linley shrugged. He couldn't be bothered to compete against less skilled competitors. Those school arena battles were more about showing off than skill. The other 3 exchanged glances. They knew Linley trained harder than anyone, and while there were some insanely talented first years with superior elemental affinity and magical strength, none were as diligent as him. Plus, he had talent in 2 elemental skills. Deep down, they figured he was probably the strongest freshman around. It'd be a shame if you don't participate, Grant said with a frown. Now someone else will steal the spotlight again. If I had your skills, I'd definitely go flaunt them and impress some girls in the process. Linley chuckled. All right, enough fantasizing. Let's just eat. Linley really didn't care at all about the class tournament, but maybe he still had time to reconsider.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and play